Hi Stampers, this is Judy Anderson from judystamps.com and I'd like to welcome you to my Happy Stamping Studio. I'd like to welcome my live viewers as well as those watching on replay. I'm hoping to inspire you in your everyday stamping creativity. So today we're going to be doing a couple techniques and we are using the Mediterranean Blooms Designer Series paper again this week. We used it last week and I want to use it again this week because I am just loving this paper pack. I am going to be also using our frayed grosgrain ribbon in white. We're going to be coloring that. Like I said, the Sentimental Park for the words, we're going to be using Thinking of You. For the front of our card, we're also using the Spotlight on Nature dies. We're going to use this one right here. I'm going to take that out. And then here's the Mediterranean Blooms Designer Series paper again. If you want to see the patterns, take a look at last week's live on Facebook or YouTube. And I've gone through those last week. And we are also going to be using these butterfly accents. You know, these came out last year and I used them like crazy last year. And it's getting to be that time again with spring coming up soon, hopefully. And so I wanted to use them again today. So we're going to use this one right here. And so I'll be doing something with that, a fun technique. And the papers I'm using are the Lemon Lolly. And that is my card base. And that is just our standard card base. I'm going to go ahead and burnish that score line. There we go. And set that to the side. I have some white, basic white paper, which we're going to be cutting with our die in just a second. I have some peach pie. And here is the paper we're going to be using. And then I have some scraps of old olive. Okay, so we're going to start out with cutting our die. And I've got the mini machine here. And with the mini machine, you've got your plate, which you're going to set in. And then we have a bottom plate. And remember, when you use your plates, you want to stair step. I might kind of use the Stampin' Up! Emblem there. So put that down there. Then we're going to put our paper in here. I just love it when I can take my dies and use the mini machine. I take this when we go up to our place in Michigan also because it's so handy to travel with. You just put this one down and here we're going to stair step this one too just a little bit. You just don't want them straight across here because then it makes it really tough to come through the machine. So remember to stair step. Little steps or big steps. Doesn't matter, just as long as you stair step it, push it in until the handle starts to move. Then go ahead and just crank it through. Here we go. Now make sure you remember that this machine is a little bit tighter, and I'm coming backwards just because I've got my lights on the other side there. Because the embossing and cutting width is smaller, so your machine is a little bit tighter than your big machine, but it's so handy to bring along. It's just like a little purse. I even cut die cuts in the car when we're traveling. So here we go. I'm going to have this, and that is going to be that. So I'm going to grab my stamps next because I want to work with my white paper before I start my coloring. And like I said, I am going to be using Thinking of You. So Thinking of should be this one right here. And I am going to be using my Memento ink for this. So Thinking of, and then the U is a different font. I just love when the fonts are a little bit different. Now, what you could do, and I'm going to show you this on my, I'm going to show you on the grid paper. It might come up a little bit easier. We're going to use a larger block for this. Okay, so I want to measure my circle, and my circle is approximately 3 by 3, well, about 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. So I know that I need to space my words within 2 3/4 and 2 3/4. Let me grab a larger block here. This is a little trick I use sometimes for my classes, especially because a lot of my students don't like it when their words are a little bit crooked. So I'm going to do thinking of and then the you. And I'm going to use my grid to line this up straight. And I'm going to line up the top of my U. I'm going to bring it out a little bit so I can center it on the thinking of. And remember, we have 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. So I'm well within that. Now the thinking of is curved a little bit. So that's not going to be perfectly straight on here. It's going to have a little bit of a curve, kind of like a rainbow. And then I'm just going to put this right on there. Now we're going to stamp those two at the same time. Make it so much easier. So we are going to grab our piece of cardstock. We're going to grab our Memento ink and let's ink it up. And when we ink it up, we're going to tap, 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 and make sure you tap good all the way across your pad, because when you re-ink this, sometimes the ink stays kind of like in certain areas. So you want to move that ink around in that pad. Okay, and we're just going to put this on here. I'm going to put it down a little bit farther and to the left because I want my butterfly towards the top right. Okay, and I'm just going to press firmly down, and there we go. How easy was that? So that is a trick when you're using two different groups of words. And just get a bigger block and measure it out on your graph paper or your glass mat, whichever. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I am going to color my ribbon. Now my ribbon I'm going to wrap around this piece here, which is approximately 2 inches. So I know I want at least 6 inches. So I'm going to go a little bit more than 7 inches of ribbon and cut that off. Now you know that I usually don't cut my ribbon off the spool because I find that you don't waste as much. I'm going to take my brush tip with my Stampin' Blend, and this is the dark Old Olive, and I'm just going to rub this on here. And it's okay if it's variegated a little bit. And one of the reasons I did it at 7 inches rather than 6 inches is because this does unravel a little bit when you're coloring on it. But I love getting white ribbon and customizing it in this way. You could use your Stampin' Write markers. The difference is your Stampin' Blends is an alcohol base, so the ink's not going to come off on your hands. Whereas if you use the Stampin' Write markers, it may come off in your hands if they're a little bit damp or sweaty. Now, this side, the ravel part stayed white. So can you see that? Let me hold this up. So on that side, it's white. And on this side, I colored over it. So it is Old Olive. It's a little bit lighter. And then this side is white. So I'm going to leave it like that because I like that two-tone like that. So we're going to put that to the side. Lots of stuff to the side today, right? Okay, the next thing we're going to use is our blending brushes. And I am going to get our basic black Stampin' Blend. You could use a marker. We've got our butterfly. Now I want to color our butterfly, and let me get this piece. So this is where you can decide. Do you want the butterfly flying off like this, or do you want it face towards the thinking of you? You could even put it on this side, but I'm actually going to put this off to the right. If you put it on this side, I would do the opposite of what I'm doing today, and I'll explain when I put it all together. But I'm thinking of putting it right here. Okay, so I know I want it in this direction. So I'm going to take my Lemon Lolly, because that is my card base color. And I am going to use also the Peach Pie. Okay, and now when you take your Stampin' Blend, remember I circle it in both directions to pick up ink, like that, and then I rub it off in my lid. Now I do have some ink in my lid here, so it may be a little bit darker. So I am just going to go around the edges with my peach pie. Okay, now I'm going to go around a couple times and add color because I want to make it a little bit darker. And remember, we want to do this in layers, okay? Because you can always add ink, but you can't take it away. I got a little fuzzy there from my ribbon. Okay, I'm going to start on this side this time. Go this way and then to the center and this way. Now I'm going to show this to you. It doesn't look very dark here, but look how dark it actually is. Okay, if you want it a little bit darker, you could take this and your blending brush and put it back in that ink pad, get some more ink and just go around the edges like this, and then the edges will be darker. And I wanted this to look kind of rainbowish, but not quite. Okay, so now I'm going to use my Lemon Lolly, and this is even a lighter color, and I don't want to go over that peach pie ink. Okay, normally I would start with my lighter color and go darker, but I'm just going to move this to a different section of my paper that I have down. Remember, go in both directions when you're inking this up, and I'm going to go on the inside this time. Okay, once again, going in both directions when I pick up ink and when I spread it in my brush. And then I'm just doing a little bit of circular motion here, getting it darker. I want to do a little bit more dark. I'm going to actually pick up some of that ink around the edges of that pad. I think that pad needs to be inked up a little bit. Okay, so there we go. Now, it may not look like much of a color difference to you, but I can tell the difference here. But I do want to go over with the peach pie again. Okay, now you could grab a sponge dauber. I just don't have one handy to make this a little bit darker. But now I'm not going to rub it off in my lid this time. I'm just going to go right up here. Go in the center first, pick up some more ink in both directions, and do this back wing, and then go back on this bottom wing. Okay, so that's adding a little bit darker ink to that. Okay, so now I don't want the body necessarily the yellow or the peach pie, the lemon lolly or the peach pie. So I'm going to take my blend, I'm going to go over the antennae here, and you could use your black Stampin' Write marker if you wanted. I just have this handy. So let's pick that up and see what that looks like. I think move it a little bit so I can see where I missed. It's going to go up a little bit. Give his body a little bit of a shape. Okay, so pretty much done with that. I'm going to clean off my fingers a little bit here because I don't want to get it onto, let me grab a wipe. I don't want to get it onto my cardstock. So now we're going to put our card together. Move all of this out of the way. Let's grab our silicone mat, and I am going to grab my liquid glue, and we're going to start assembling this. Now, when we put together, these are just 2 scrap pieces. I went in and I was going to cut a piece that was a 1/4 inch wider than my designer series paper, but I had these scraps. So look into your scrap bins, you guys, and use those pieces. And when you do this, you want to put your adhesive on the larger piece of paper. Okay, there's 2 reasons for this. Number 1, you're going to make sure that you cover up the adhesive. And number two, you have more control over the width. So this is when you're using two pieces of paper like this. And I want to encourage you guys to do this. A lot of times we do a whole piece back there and you're just wasting that paper in the middle. I actually, when I cut my paper for my classes, I do one piece most of the time. I would say 98% of the time, unless I have a lot of scraps of a particular color that we're using, because it's just easier for my students to place this on. But I like to do it this way also to teach them. So it looks like you have a full mat underneath, but we don't. Okay, so now we're going to tie our ribbon around this. And like I said, I want that white to show because the background of this isn't really white. It is, to me, it looks like basic beige. But I don't think that's listed on the Designer Series paper pack. So I'm just going to tie this around. Hold it down, make sure that's flat. Now my top piece needs to be a little bit longer. So we're going to just scooch it over a little bit. Okay, so we're going to tie that again. And just like that. Okay, make sure it's in a cross or a plus. Put your finger on there and wrap this top one around and through. And that is the piece that we're going to pull tight. Okay, I'm going to grab this one in here. I would probably, if you're not used to tying bows, I'd probably do your ribbon at least 8 inches because this is making it kind of tight. I can do it, but I know a lot of you say you have trouble making ribbons. So look at that. Isn't that cute? How I just love that texture on that. So I'm going to trim my ends now. And I should be using my ribbon scissors, if that's okay. So I have a pair of scissors that I only use for ribbons. I'm going to grab them. There's some older scissors that we carried. I used to have, well, I do have 2 pairs of snips, and I used to use one for ribbons and one for paper. However, they've kind of gotten mixed up, so I don't like using that. So I'm going to take my liquid glue. Oops. This can sit here a minute. Forgot the one piece. We've got the strip of peach pie. We're going to do a banner tail. So we're going to go to the center right there, and then we're going to go up from the corner to that center mark. And just about every time you can get a pretty perfect banner end. Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to attach this to our card first. Let's glue it, making sure I don't get glue on that strip, and put this about right here. Now you could emboss this strip if you wanted. I wanted to keep it a little bit simpler today. Okay, we're going to be right on there. So I'm going to put this down to the bottom, to the top, straight on there. And look at that. Aren't those colors gorgeous together? Now, the peach pie, you could actually use any color there, any accent color you wanted. I just picked peach pie. I think Poppy Parade would be really pretty for this also. Okay, I'm going to take the Thinking of You, and this is going to go up here, but I'm going to pop that up with our Stampin' Dimensionals. Let's add those on here. Now, don't forget, we've got celebration going on, where in the US here, when you make a purchase of $60, you can choose from a variety of celebration items that you can choose for free. And they've got some really cute stuff in there. My most recent order hasn't come yet. I'll probably use some of that next week. Oop, this one didn't come off. Okay, we're going to put this right up here, just overlapping that right there. Okay, and then we're going to put our butterfly. Now, you could put your butterfly directly on here, which is what I am going to do, or you could raise it up. You could put a dimensional back here, but this is really fine. So I don't like using dimensionals in that area just because you'll see it. Sometimes I will lay this, I'll color some vellum and lay this on the vellum and cut around the butterfly, and then I can raise it up. So I put this right here, just like that. Pretty simple layout with several techniques today you learned. Now I do have the Sunny Day iridescent die, and I thought I would use one of these on our butterfly, or perhaps someplace else on here. I was thinking on the butterfly's body. I'm going to switch take your pick to the spatula and pick this up and put this right there. Now it's just above his body a little bit, but it just brings out that peach. I know it's kind of hard to tell with my light. So that is our card for today. And just a reminder, we use the Mediterranean Blooms Designer Series paper with the butterfly accents and our Spotlight on Nature dies. We use our Stampin' Blends to do some coloring on here and coloring our ribbon. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and until we meet again, happy stamping, everybody!